Thanks for staying with us. This is Africa News with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, South Sudan's president says he's ready to talk with the ex-vice president that he's blamed for recent escalating violence. Thousands have fled the fighting as it spreads out from around Juba. Also, Goodluck Jonathan's political fortunes take another turn for the worse as dozens of lawmakers join the opposition and his ruling PDP loses its majority in the lower house. And a new law in Israel has African migrants protesting that they're being treated like prisoners and what they need the most is help. But first, hundreds of people have been killed in spreading violence in South Sudan. Troops loyal to President Salva Kiir have been fighting soldiers backing sacked Vice President Riek Machar. Now, he's gone into hiding in South Sudan, accused by the government of having launched a failed coup over the weekend. Machar denies this and says that Kiir's using him as a scapegoat. Thousands of civilians are sheltering at UN compounds in Juba, and as the violence ripples out from the capital, their fears of escalating inter-ethnic conflict. South Sudan's neighbours are braced to accept more refugees, and our regional correspondent Duncan Woodside is in Kenya. Duncan, has the fighting continued to spread today?
Well, what we know is that at the moment the situation in Juba, that's the capital city, is relatively calm. Order was restored by the security forces, or at least the elements of security forces that remain loyal to the president, Salva Kiir, yesterday afternoon. The last fighting in the capital took place on Tuesday. There's been a very heavy security presence throughout the capital city today. And elsewhere in the country, though, the situation appears to has worsened. There's been an escalation in the province of Jonglei with a newer militia, apparently aligned with the sacked vice president, taking the town of Bor, according to multiple sources that we've spoken to today.
Now, Duncan, Machar says he's not behind any coup. Kiir says that he's ready to talk. Any chance that these two are going to be seeing eye to eye and end this anytime soon?
Well, that's right, yes. Obviously, Salva Kiir, the president, having reached out to his sacked vice president, Riek Machar, by offering to conduct talks. That obviously stands in marked contrast to his position before, when he was saying that Machar was orchestrating an attempted coup. Now, Machar himself has denied any involvement in any attempted coup. He said that the violence in Juba was generated by a split within the presidential guard itself and had nothing to do with him. Whether Machar is prepared to accept Kiir's offer of talks, that's obviously a different matter. International journalists spoke to him today, and he told those journalists that his bodyguards had been summarily executed in the capital. So obviously that leaves him very exposed. He's in hiding, and it would appear that he has little reason to trust any olive branch from the government at this stage.
Thanks very much. Duncan Woodside there, our regional correspondent, bringing us up to date on escalating violence in South Sudan. Now, Machar is a former rebel leader. He's long had a tense relationship with Salva Kiir. Nicolas Chemin tells us more about South Sudan's former number 2.
July the 14th, 2011 was a high point for Riek Machar. That day, South Sudan's vice president went to the United Nations. After years of war with northern Sudan, his country was finally admitted as the UN's 193rd member.
This is, to us, as people of South Sudan, a historic and also an emotional day.
2 years later, the situation is very different for the 60-year-old former rebel. Machar was sacked in July, and now President Salva Kiir accuses him of having tried to overthrow him. On Wednesday, Machar denied the accusation in the Sudan Tribune newspaper.
What took place in Juba was a misunderstanding between presidential guards within their division. It was not a coup attempt.
Machar, who has a PhD in philosophy from a UK university, is a controversial character. In 1991, Nuer soldiers loyal to him massacred hundreds of Dinka, Salva Kiir's ethnic group. Then he challenged the authority of the charismatic John Garang, the leader of South Sudan's pro-independence party, the SPLM. In 1997, Machar shocked many when he signed a peace deal with the SPLM's enemy, Omar al-Bashir, the president of Sudan. But soon afterwards, he relaunched a rebellion. His career really rose after Garang's sudden death in a 2005 helicopter crash. Earlier this year, after he was sacked by Kiir, Machar promised to run against him in the 2015 presidential election.
Now, 3 Syrian doctors in Somalia to give medical support are amongst the 6 victims of a fatal ambush outside of Mogadishu. A Somali doctor and 2 aides also lost their lives in an attack that local police have blamed on al-Shabaab Islamist extremists. The convoy came under fire on Wednesday as it headed toward a hospital in Elasha Biyaha to help patients there. Somalia's weak government is still struggling to establish stability following African Union troops' help to push al-Shabaab out of the capital back in 2011. Egypt's toppled president is to face trial for conspiring with foreign groups to carry out terror attacks in the country. Mohamed Morsi and several others, including the top leaders of the Muslim Brotherhood, are accused of sponsoring terrorism and working with Palestinian militant group Hamas. Since being deposed by the military in July, Mr. Morsi has already gone on trial for inciting murder and violence. The new charges carry the death penalty. The 18th of December marks International Migrants' Day. Now, Israel is one of the countries to which thousands of Africans hoping to make a better life for themselves head. The majority are Sudanese and Eritreans, many of whom have walked hundreds of miles through the desert to get there. Now, a new law leaves many saying that they feel treated like prisoners.
Some 200 illegal African migrants marched to Jerusalem from their detention center in the Negev desert to protest a law passed last week which they say treats them like criminals. Under the new law, the migrants, although free to come and go, must report back to the remote detention center within 16 hours. At the end of their march, they gathered outside the Israeli parliament. They say they deserve to be given the status of refugees.
We want them to know we are refugees, and we want them to recognize us and deal us as refugees because we are suffer a lot in our country and we have real trouble in our country. Because of that, we run away from our country to come to Israel for protection. But they put us in prison for two years.
The Israeli government is trying to discourage illegal migrants, most of whom are Eritrean and Sudanese. They arrive in the country on foot, crossing illegally through Egypt's Sinai Peninsula and then into Israel. The plight of these migrants is being taken up by human rights organizations.
We're bound to do all that we can to help people who are refugees. It's part of the principles that this country was founded on, and I think it's very important that not just for them, but for our country and its moral fiber to see that we give these people justice.
Since 2006, some 60,000 illegal African migrants have entered Israel. The Israeli government recently completed a 240-kilometer-long fence along its border with Egypt to dissuade other migrants from attempting the same journey.
Things are just going from bad to worse for Nigeria's president. Goodluck Jonathan's PDP party has lost its majority in the lower house after 37 MPs defected to the new APC opposition. It's the first time that a president's lost control of the chamber since military rule ended in 1999 and comes after the breakaway of a powerful faction of governors several weeks ago. Adding to the turning tide this month, Jonathan's predecessor, Olusegun Obasanjo, said it would be morally flawed for him to seek re-election in 2015. And Jonathan's not said whether he'll be standing, but he seems to be losing favour right, left and centre. We'll be taking a closer look at issues there in our bulletin in the next hour or so. So do join us for Africa News then if you can. Now we head now to Accra, where Ghanaian artist Musa Swala's first solo exhibition explored the lengths to which people he's known have gone to in search of a better life. Katerina Vitozzi reports.
It's called The Place, an exhibition that explores why and how Ghanaians travel across desert and sea to search for a better place in the world. This is the first solo show from Ghanaian artist Musa Swala. Its theme for him is deeply personal.
I thought of embarking on a journey to Libya because I think the only way for me to make it in life is to get into Libya. Until the unfortunately incident happened to my friends who got lost on the Sahara Desert and they died on the desert.
Using reclaimed materials, Swala explores an all-too-familiar story for his community. He's from Nima, one of Ghana's poorest areas. Hundreds of people have left there to try to get to Northern Africa or Europe, mostly young men like Majid Akondo. Majid spent 4 weeks travelling across the Sahara Desert, from Ghana to Libya. From there, he tried to get a boat to Italy. The risk to him, as it does to others, seemed worth it.
The Western world is paved with gold. The street is paved with gold. So you think you have to also go there. It's either two things, whether you die or you live. Seeing this man, yeah, that's what I thought. White, only my eyes. Sometimes the wind will be blowing this particular man. Maybe they might be me, rather.
Pieces are both beautiful and tragic. This exhibition is deliberately realist. It has an educational aim alongside its artistic one. Poet Shakira Rahim has helped develop it, adding her verse to the visual punch.
Set on a journey full of thirst and despair, the pain, the heat, the death. We can't escape when it's everywhere. This hit of reality. The sun has never felt so hot. Its rays gun me down. Sand has never felt so harsh.
These are the dangers of this modern African exodus. Swala and Rahim want people, especially Ghana's young people, to know that truth, both to educate and to warn.
Katrina Fedozzi there reporting for us from Ghana. Well, that just about wraps up African news for now, but we will be back with more in an hour. For now, I'll hand you back to Laura's very capable hands.
Thanks very much indeed, Georgia. And thanks to you at home for watching. That brings us to the end of this part of Live from Paris. But fear not, it continues here on France 24. Much more to come. Mark Owen with you in just a few minutes. He'll be here with you through until midnight. So don't go away.